classic examples of the overreaction. We know about the overreaction. Corporations scared witless of getting it wrong, getting accused of not dealing with the issue. And on many occasions, of course, we know only too well, and this is where the sort of delicate balance is, it's turned out to be true. People in the world of politics, business or entertainment who've been allowed to carry on their illegal, illicit or licentious ways despite there being plenty of evidence that they were a wrong 'un. The company turned a blind eye on multiple occasions. We've seen it so many times. Unfortunately, and here's the problem, as a result of such jaw-dropping inaction over the years, they've now gone full circle. And now we live in a world where even a minor indiscretion, a bad joke 20 years ago, or a highly debatable overheard conversation will have you hung, drawn and quartered and declared person non grata and your entire career finished. The kind of punishment you wouldn't get if you assaulted someone, robbed a house or set fire to a police car. No judge or magistrate has ever decreed your livelihood and your ability to feed your family will be removed for the rest of time. But those kind of punishments are left for dystopian novels and films. We know that. But sadly, in the real world, that's kind of where we're at now. And the latest victim of the ducking stall is everyone's favourite Aussie chef. He is, of course, John Torode. Now, we've known the kind of MasterChef story for a while now. And his former co-host, while he was Greg Wallace, while he was being put through the grinder, Torode was at home sitting pretty, thinking, who's going to be my new co-host? Well, fast forward a couple of months and Torode himself has been booted off MasterChef and will probably never work again. Now, while Greg was accused of being a bit inappropriate in a kind of cringy 1970s style, John was marked out for different reasons. Turns out John Torode was a mad racist. Except, of course, he wasn't. All we knew up until now was apparently he made a racist comment. We weren't quite sure what it was. Today, thanks to The Sun, we have the full story. So when you first heard he made a racist comment, did something racist, you have sort of weird images in your head. Did he black up and do some kind of weird Afro-Caribbean accent? Did he lob a white hood over his head and start chasing black contestants around the MasterChef kitchen? Was he invoking Chubby Brown at the Christmas party? You don't know what he did. What did he do? Some great journalism over at The Sun, as I mentioned, has given us the answer. He sang a song nearly 3/4 of a decade ago at a staff bash in a bar. And here's where it gets interesting. Turns out he was sacked by the BBC for allegedly using the N-word twice. He apparently repeated, this is crucial, lyrics from Kanye West's song Gold Digger, which contain the racial slur. So after work party gathering 7 years ago, something like that, that's what happened. Now, I can't imagine, not that I would ever go anywhere near karaoke or singing a song out loud. I would imagine if somebody said, like, sing that song and these are the lyrics, you'd kind of skip that bit, right? You might skip that. But I don't think there's a cat in hell's chance anyone would say that somebody who repeated a song that is already out there, it's a massive song from a massive artist, it's well known, you can find it on YouTube, you find it on Spotify, you will have heard it played on some radio stations. That song, to repeat that song, is hardly the same as walking down the road, seeing a non-white person and shouting out the N-word. They are not just different things, they are entirely different stratospheres of what has happened here. But Mr. Torode, and in the world of the ducking stall, has had to walk the plank. Is he the victim of a woke witch hunt? What's your take on this? Because I got in touch with a mate this morning, a black guy, and said to him, what do you make of this? And his answer was exactly the one that I've just given. Now, that doesn't mean he represents all black people. There'll be different views out there, but I do want to hear from you, black, white, or any other colour for that matter, male, female, chef, non-chef, Australian, non-Australian, whatever your background is on this one, just riddle me this one. Is he the victim of a woke witch hunt here? There was talk that he could have taken a year off and rethink, and navel glaze, and go on one of those courses that cleanse your mind of such filth. I don't think his mind was riddled with filth. He sang along to an already written lyric from a very well-known, internationally famous artist. That doesn't make it a good look, by the way. In fact, it's a lousy look. You wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it. You'd have got to that bit of the lyric and gone, well, hang on a second. I'm not going to read that out. Come on. Here I am, pasty white boy, reading that out. That would just look a bit weird, wouldn't it? Sound a bit weird. However, he did. It is a song. It's a legit song. You can buy it now, download it, bang, like that. You won't go to jail for downloading it, and you won't go to jail for singing along to it, unless somebody happens to hear you at a MasterChef after-work party. 0344 499 1000. Is Torode the victim of a woke witch hunt? Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day, and there are many of them, of course. Steve N. Allen, the broadcaster and the comedian, is with us. Afternoon to you, Steve.
Good afternoon. I will not be doing any karaoke, just to put your mind at rest.
Oh, yes. Do you ever go there, karaoke bound? Is that a thing you would you examine when out on a night?
No, I mean, I don't know why people have made entertainment out of what would be one of my panic dreams. So no, I don't know why people like the idea of that. Singing in public is up there with walking into work naked. In fact, if I had to pick one, actually, no, now I know what happened with Greg Wallace, I probably would not do the walking into work naked.
It's very true, actually, yeah. The cringe factor of the karaoke thing is always there. I don't do it, and I'm not comfortable when other people do it as well. I don't know what's funny about somebody singing a song badly.
No, and when you walk past a pub and you can hear it going on inside, and it just seems half singing, half fight. Do you know what I mean? It's got that vibe to it.
Let's start then with this story. It's been revealed MasterChef host John Torode was sacked after singing that Kanye West song, which features the M-word. In case you're not familiar with Mr. Torode, this is the man in question.
As a rhubarb lover, I want more rhubarb, I want more juice, but I want more of that rhubarb.
There it is. I don't think we were wondering in the office whether the word rhubarb was some kind of, I don't know, you know, some kind of parochial subword for something else. But no, it was talking about rhubarb there. You know, we live in a world where we have to examine all of these possibilities. But he's gone now, and this is apparently what happened. He was singing a Kanye West song. Do you fire a man for that, Steve?
Sweet mercy, no. Because now we've got a situation where you can't make a sound from your face without losing your job. Context, of course, is appropriate. Look, here's a phrase that is problematic historically, right? Let's invade Poland. And yet when I say it, and often just as some sort of silly joke or whatever, but when Hitler said it was different. You see how context really means whether something's a crime or not. Now, to be fair, in John's defense, when he was giving his defense, he said he's sure he wouldn't have sung the explicit version. He said he only knows the radio version. Now, I think you could guess the explicit version. I don't know if you know that song. It's very much a key part of the rhyming structure, as if John would be there going, well, I know that she's a gold digger and she ain't messing with no some sort of person, but I can't work out who it is. So I'm not sure I believe that argument. As in, I couldn't possibly guess what. It's like a Two Ronnie sketch where they don't say the rhyming word. But clearly he's not a man whose heart is full of hate. He was singing along to a song. Yeah. There are people who've done far worse. We live in a world where, look, I know it's not racial, but Gordon Ramsay's career is based on offensive language, and he's managing to still be near food. Yeah. People like Chris Brown hit Rihanna, and he still releases songs. Literally, Kanye West will be getting more work than John Torode. Their crimes, their equal crimes, singing along to Kanye West songs. And then Kanye also did some other stuff and manages to get more work than John Torode. So I've got so much sympathy for him. It's just because he was wrong time, wrong place. There's no way this wouldn't have been anything if it weren't for the BBC lurching from one crisis to another crisis, recently going through the Greg Wallace. And it's not even just the BBC's fault. When he did that Instagram post saying it's just middle-class women of a certain age, that was the moment of career implosion. Mate, who do you think watches MasterChef? Yes. Do you know what I mean? That's like Drone Monkey Magazine having a go at divorce.
And it is interesting. Look, when you and I used to go to those incredibly, manic BBC Radio Kent parties on a Friday night, lots of people were doing stuff, and I mean legal stuff, dancing on tables and singing away. And if somebody had handed us a little sheet and go, come on, boys, sing along to this, you wouldn't go there, right? You'd look at it and go, I'm not going to sing that out, am I? That would just be not good. But that would be... So, yeah, it might have been idiotic and a bad decision on his part, but it's a very different thing from mooching down the street and seeing a black guy and shouting out the N-word. Then you fire him out of a cannon, but he didn't do that. I am reminded, however, and I'd totally forgotten about this till it was said to me this morning, a mate reminded me of it. Anton Dubek, back in 2009, said the P word, and not in a sort of ambiguous way. I mean, this was completely unambiguous. Leila Ruas, who was his contestant, he was the dance partner, she was the celebrity, walked into a room. Apparently she'd had some makeup on, her face looked a little bit darker, and he said to her, "You look like a," and he used the P word. Now that's unequivocal. That is like, there's no way around that one. Sorry, Anton, you went bullseye on the bad language, racist language thing. And they didn't fire him. To the BBC, they said Anton de Becker's apologised unreservedly to Leila, who's accepted his apology. Everything's fine. Said Leila, we've been rehearsing since then. We've done a few dances since then. And I just want it to be forgotten and move on. And the BBC had nothing more to say on the matter. Even though earlier in the year they'd fired Margaret Thatcher's daughter Carol, remember that one in the green room, because she made a golly joke about a tennis player's hair, saying it looked like her old toy. She did get fired. So we can't say that Anton kept his job because 13, 16 years ago, whatever it was, they didn't fire people back then, because they did, because they'd fired Carol Thatcher. But then she was the daughter of a witch, so that's probably why.
Yeah, I mean, literally Justin Trudeau managed to work out the rest of his political career and did something far worse, probably idiotic, again, maybe not from a heart full of hate.
Oh, yeah.
But for what the crime
He
seems
did the
to be here.
blackface thing, didn't he?
He did, yeah. The pictures are still out there, and every so often they circle. So there were two incidents, weren't there? There was the singing along to and apparently using the phrase to. This is another. We need to look at this. The second case, he used allegedly, and they've substantiated it, used the word to someone who was not offended, but someone who overheard it complained.
Yes.
Look at the world we're living in then. So that, again, it means you can't make a certain sound in a space that will offend no one.
Yeah.
You can't do that just in case someone manages to hear it and goes, well, and then complained. John was not told about it and only found out that the complaint was made like 7 years later. Recently, he found this out. I don't know. It whiffs of something else, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it's possible Torode was having this very conversation that we're having, you know. Have you heard that song, that Kanye West song? It goes like this, da, 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 da. He says the word and it goes, yeah, that's unbelievable, isn't it? I don't know, you know, it could have been anything. The fact is, it was 3/4 of a decade ago. He hardly remembers it, and it certainly wasn't used as a racial slur.
And could just result in an HR going, come on, don't do that again. And he'd say, I don't remember doing it, but I won't do that again.
That's all it needed. That's all it needed. And that's the problem. Let's move to this story.
He is Australian, though, just to finish. For balance, he is Australian, so probably a bit racist. Kidding.
Probably quite a lot, actually. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. He would have probably been made Prime Minister in Australia on the Aussie version of MasterChef. Hey, you seen that Torode, mate? He's fantastic. Get him on there. Yeah. And now the news at 7 tonight with John Torode. I don't know, you know, something like that. Listen, let's go to this story, Steve. Anti-migrant protesters clashing with police outside the Bell Hotel in Sussex last night. This was after an asylum seeker, an Ethiopian asylum seeker, was arrested. Can't say much more on that. The Sun has reported hundreds of asylum seekers, though, in taxpayer-funded hotels being charged with serious crimes. Let's hear from the journalist who broke that story, Julia Atherley.
There were 29 cases related to sexual crimes, including 7 alleged rapes, 1 proven incident of exposure, and 1 of attempting to engage in sexual communication with a child. A further 64 violent-related offences were recorded, including common assault, GBH, ABH, possessing a knife, possessing an imitation firearm, and others. At least 5 asylum seekers who had been staying at taxpayer-funded hotels appeared in court yesterday for charges including sexual assault, assault by beating, and theft. In one case we attended, an Ethiopian man is accused of trying to kiss a 14-year-old schoolgirl in a town centre just 8 days after arriving in the UK on a small boat.
And Julia will join us later in the programme on this. Look, no one's going to defend, Steve, you know, the kind of elements that you see at any of these sort of protests. We saw it in Southport, where you start throwing bricks at police officers' head and try to set fire to their van. I don't know where that contingent comes from. They seem to pop up very quick. Whether they get on a coach and go, oh, yeah, it's all kicking off in Sussex, let's go down there. I don't know whether it's that or what it is. But you have to understand the anger that people have. Because on one hand, we're told these are the most vulnerable people in the world, escaping a tyrannical regime and a war zone. They're very delicate people because they've experienced horrors, their family possibly wiped out, and so they need looking after. And then you hear stories like this. The anger is palpable and it has to be understood.
Yeah, and it is possible to hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. For most of us, we can consider two things to be bad without one getting knocked off the table of things that are bad. This is the world we live in, isn't it? That if you get two things are bad and you can say one's worse, people think, what, you're saying the other one isn't bad? No, that's not even how language works. You don't understand it. I mean, I remember the simpler days when we used to not like people who were sex offenders. It felt quite easy to know who was the wrong 'un. It would be the sex offender. You do something a bit dodgy on a sex thing, you're a wrong 'un. We know who to hate. But due to some sort of complex system of intersectionality and also no nuance, we end up in this weird situation. There was a quote in the story from the police, which has blown my mind ever since I read this earlier today. Because of some of the dodgier side of the protests, the police felt it necessary to say that criminality will not be allowed on our streets. Well, maybe you should have said that to the people at the start of this story.
Yeah.
How do they not see that staring them in the face? You're causing more hypocrisy, which is going to cause more anger, and then things like this are going to happen.
Big problems here.